Hi altcoin watchers, welcome to an altcoin Bible here on a Wednesday. If you want to watch the extended version of this video where I dive into these charts in depth, down to the levels of buy and sell signals, make sure to become newsletter subscribers and I will cover that completely with you. All right, let's get straight in. I'm going to just quickly preface this by saying all these charts really depend on what Bitcoin is doing at 60,000. If we lose that level, a lot of these altcoin setups will be invalidated, but I'm specifically looking at altcoins that are fairly high conviction, have a strong narrative behind them. But I've also experienced quite a decent sell-off. And that's something I want everyone to just probably think about here as well. Altcoins across the board were already down 30 to 60%. Some a little bit more than that, which is just crazy. And they're holding up okay as Bitcoin has breached below 60,000. Bitcoin hasn't really gone below 60,000 with any conviction yet. I suspect if we see a daily close and get more aggressive beneath that, altcoins will follow another maybe 10-20%, and maybe more, of course. But you have to weigh up the risk reward here. When we're down 60%, we still think we're in a bull market, and if we're going to bounce at some point, is the risk reward worth not selling your altcoin bags rather, and then re-entering on the maybe the opportunity to buy 10-20% lower when they're already down 60%. There's an argument to be made. Again, I'm not going to go into that too deeply, but it's something you all need to grapple with and see where you sit. For a lot of people, it's just probably better to play dead if you're looking at your longer term portfolio and medium term allocations. The active stuff though, that's where you can get a little bit more crafty and manage that risk to a large degree. But again, it depends on your risk tolerance and your time horizon here. But I am monitoring the altcoins are actually doing okay. They're not really dropping too much harder, which kind of tells me that sellers are close to an exhaustion point. But I'm also very cognizant that the daily charts, they have room to move to the downside on the RSI. So I'm really looking for, for those diamond entries, I'm looking for the RSI to really plummet to the oversold territory areas where you can see I've just drawn a little bit of blue markings from a longer video. But that's what I wanted to get across here, that I'm looking at high conviction altcoins. So for today's episode, I'm looking at one to watch, which is STX. STX has had a pretty impressive move to the downside following Bitcoin, but we know since Bitcoin stabilized, STX generally acts as that proxy where I think it's going to do really well. But again, longer term time horizon on that one. What am I seeing with STX here? Well, if we draw the Fibonacci retracement from the low to the high of that entire move, we're actually sitting right above the 0.786 there for STX. So this is a really interesting point where I think STX still has some room to go, especially if we think that the daily RSI is going to bottom out even lower. There is a huge liquidity zone just below. You can see in this big blue circle I've drawn, you can just see how much price action was through here. This would be a really amazing spot to capture a wick or just DCA and lower your cost basis on some of your holdings. So that's what I'm watching for there. In terms of if you just want to play it a bit safer, you can wait for confirmation of a reclaim above 2.4 and then around that 2.7 region. But you do have to be patient with that if you want to capture value down here as well. That's a great idea. Stoke RSI is a little way off turning around, so it has, again, this just points me towards that still a little way to go. But I'm getting warmer on some of these altcoins, but I think we're all going to have time here. It's not going to be a real quick thing, especially with so much macro uncertainty in the air. All right, Optimism. This is my cherry ripe this week. Really have to look for those relative performers, and there's something going on with Ethereum and the layer 2s. They've shown a bit of strength from the Hong Kong ETF, but really not much. But there's now that idea, the passive bid underneath the market. Investors will like that. So layer 2s are really interesting here. They are holding up really, really well, and Optimism being the key one in that niche. It's just reclaimed its 10 daily EMA, which is nice, but you can see these squiggles here. I really wanted to get back above the 200-day moving average up here, form support above, and then she is absolutely off. RSI trending up. Stoke RSI is a bit mature here. That's one thing we need to be wary of. This could also be a bit of a rising channel where we drop down in here, so that's something I'm monitoring. But let's say we have that second leg down, that's a lower low in price action, and then we could look potentially to see the RSI form a higher low where it's gaining in strength, which would be a lovely bullish divergence on the chart there. So in terms of relative strength, really love Optimism there. All right, for my danger zone this week, Steve actually dropped this into TMT, I believe, but he definitely dropped it into Mastermind, and this was an opportunity on ORDI. Now it's down somewhere in the region of 66% from the high. So that's a really interesting value proposition there for ORDI, but I'm not entirely convinced on ORDI yet. Why particularly is because it's just showing zero strength on just bouncing at all. That just tells me that I think there's a capitulation coming with something like ORDI as well. A bit of worry in there. I'm not interested in looking at altcoins right now unless they're showing some actual strength. I'm looking at really buying any bids that get hit lower. That's kind of my framework. But if you look here, it's actually blasted through us 0.786 on that previous candle. They very much could get rejected, going back to $35, and then coming down here into this huge volume pocket. Right now it's in this real no man's land of big gap. There's nothing there, so I wouldn't be buying here. That's just my feeling, especially after it's blitzed through 0.786. I think it's got one more little leg down on here, which is probably down towards that 25, maybe 20 region. That might be getting a little bit too greedy. If you're a longer term investor in ORDI, then that's fine. I'm a little bit not sold on ORDI. There's not a lot of information on what it does. Again, this is just TA, but that's how I feel around ORDI. Daily RSI has still got a bit more room to move down to that region. So guys, hope you've enjoyed this altcoin Bible, quick one as well. Stay tuned for all the macro news coming out overnight. Again, I think this is all just shorter term noise, but it is impactful in the market, especially if it drives us convincingly below 60,000. But right now, Bitcoin is holding the 100-day moving average, and that is very, very important if we want to hold here and remain range bound as we head back towards the top of the range. So have a wonderful day. I'll catch you again next time. Bye-bye.